Well, welcome into the AL Recruiting Podcast. This is episode 6, and we have a packed show. I've got 5 different interviews with 3 coaches from Foley, Huntsville, and the Randolph School. I've got an interview with quarterback Christopher Vizzina and defensive lineman Hunter Osborne, 2023 prospects that are blowing up this offseason. Taylor Morton is with me this morning as we talk about the Bigger in Football segment. But first, before you do anything else, hit the subscribe button. It helps me continue to give coverage to recruits in the state of Alabama. But Taylor, welcome to the show this morning. Glad to have you back on with us.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here today, and the podcast is going great. So excited to be on for another episode.
Love it, man. Well, here's the thing. Bigger than football. You can't get, I don't think we would be a good football podcast if we didn't talk about probably one of the big unfortunate stories in football this week. And it's the Urban Meyer situation. And it's a horrible story. It's a horrible, from our perspective of who we are. I don't like to pile on to someone. I don't like to just bash someone. But when we look at this situation, the Jaguars had a game Thursday night in Cincinnati. And he sent the team home. He did not get on the team plane, and he went out with his family and then stayed out after his family left. And then some video surfaced of him with a woman that was not his wife and significantly younger than him. And really it's gotten to the point where he's had to issue an apology. His family's upset with him. And Taylor, I don't, and you can speak on this for me, but I've never heard of a head coach just saying, you know what, I'm going to tell the rest of the team to go on. I'm going to stay in this town while I send everybody else home.
The only situation I can think of is when Lane Kiffin gets kicked off the team plane on the tarmac, but that wasn't his decision. That was the team's decision. So most of the time, I've never really heard of a head coach leaving the team behind. That's just unfortunately, it's just a selfish move, regardless of, even if you're going to see family, that's his job, that's his team. And so that's just a selfish move in my opinion.
Yeah. And isn't this a story as old as time, is that you aren't where you're supposed to be? I mean, he chooses, and I think everybody keeps pointing, well, he should have just went home with his family. No, he should have been on the plane with his team. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to be, or is the head coach. And to me, if you're the head coach, you're the first one on the plane, you're the last one off the plane, you're the first one at the facility, last one out of the facility. And, that's where you're supposed to lead in that situation. And I mean, I kept thinking about this. This is literally just another example of the story of David in Scripture.
That's right.
When David gets in all the trouble, it's that he's not with his men on the battlefield. And that's what the Lord has called him to be, as the leader on the battlefield. And so what does he do? Yeah. He stays at home and gets somebody else to do his job. I mean, you can talk about this, but how many times have people come to you and said, man, I've gotten in trouble. I'm dealing with this sin. And it's literally started when they quit being where they're supposed to be.
That's right. No doubt. It's, if you're where you're supposed to be, that'll eliminate, like we talked about earlier, 99% of sins. You put yourself in those vulnerable situations. What do you expect? I remember a lot of times, traveling with a team at Alabama, there was definitely opportunities to be where you're not supposed to be. You're obviously going to be in at curfew, but there's places you're not supposed to go, and there's people you're not supposed to be around. And most of the time when guys would be around those people and be in those places, they would end up getting in trouble. And so, it'll definitely eliminate 99% of sin, 99% of issues that come our way, just being where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, and I want to say this, like the result of that night is that it's a course of multiple bad decisions. But ultimately it starts with the one decision. You have to make the one. And I just want to say and encourage, especially you young guys that are watching this, man, just file this away in the back of your mind. That be where the Lord has you. Do what the Lord has called you to do. When you're doing whatever he's called you to do and you're being whatever he's called you to be, you're not going to find yourself in these situations. It's when you begin to make those choices and say, you know what, I'm not going to do exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to be exactly who God's called me to be. That's when you're going to start issuing apologies to your team, to your workplace, and to your family. And you don't want to be in that place, man. That interview with him, he couldn't even look at the camera, and he's just dejected and embarrassed, and as he should be.
That's right. No doubt. And Dr. J, and a lot of people say this, what you do today matters. And so it will, especially in our day and age, and you've got to be smarter and know that everybody around you has a cell phone, has a camera, and it doesn't make anything okay. Just to, even if they didn't have cameras, you didn't need to be doing that. But just know that it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and one moment to destroy it. It takes a lifetime to build a reputation and one social media post or one social media video to destroy it as well. And so for the recruits listening, just know that, hey, you're in a whole new world with social media. Yeah. And what you post on there can affect your recruiting status.
Yeah. I mean, and it has consequences. I mean, yeah, I believe, and 100% we believe in a God that can bring reconciliation and healing. And we believe that he can do that in Coach Meyer's life too. But there's still going to be consequences, because I know you and you know me. I don't care if he coaches in the college game again, my kid's not going to go play for him.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, God can still bring restoration, but there's still those consequences of the rest of his life that's going to be with him. And I know what that's going to look like. So, but man, I hate this story, and I want to be very clear. I've tried this week, even when I've heard about it, to be praying for him and to pray for his family and to lift him up. I don't want to continue to bash him, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't learn from this either. And we didn't try to teach players and coaches from this, because life is bigger than football. And I can assure you, he's got problems that are bigger than football right now. And I want to say that is that try your best to avoid those situations. If you'll be where you're planted, be where God has called you to be, you're not going to run into this stuff.
That's right.
Taylor, thanks so much for joining us today, man. It helps so much just to have somebody to kind of bounce these things off of with bigger than football. But guys, stay tuned. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. We are excited to have with us the head man at the Foley Lions. Deric Scott is with us today. Coach Scott, good to have you on. Good to be with you today, man.
Well, it's awesome to be with you, David. Thank you for the opportunity, and just a great opportunity to be on with you today.
Yeah. The one thing I was looking, just kind of doing a little bit of research, and when you got to Foley, obviously, this year really it's your first kind of full off season, because it's tough to count COVID as a great off season. You came in May of 2020 and took over the team, but I would imagine you didn't get to do all the off-season things you would really like to do. And now this is kind of your first year really with this team as you build this program coming from Viger and being at Foley.
Absolutely. Dave, you made a great point. That year, that April the 20 of 2020, when I got here, it was really just a exercise in making sure that the medical side of things were covered. We were spending all of our time trying to get the medical side, making sure our players were safe, making sure the environment was as safe as possible in those uncertain times, and really not a whole lot of information at that time.
Right.
So you change your focus as a coach from exiting those strategies and building up the physical side of your players to the more of the protective socially, making sure that we're doing the things that we can do as many of the things we knew to do at that time as possible to do from a medical standpoint so that we didn't put anyone at risk. And that was our biggest goal. So you can kind of take that year and kind of watch it almost. It was personally about just safety and we were trying to build our program, but it was a lot of things that were not in place.
Right.
And there was no way to put them in place.
Well, one thing I saw that you said, even coming in to Foley, coming from Viger, because you took Viger to a state championship game and you came to Foley and you had been an assistant at Foley before. And one of the things I read is that you knew what the potential that Foley had. And you have to be talking about that. All of us in the state of Alabama, we know Foley, we recognize that name because it's tied to Julio Jones. I mean, it's tied to that recruiting class, it's tied to guys like Julio and Robert Lester that came out that year. And you were assistant coach when those guys were there. And so you have to know, you're saying, I know what Foley can be. I know the type of players that it produces. And, you're looking at that, that has to be something that's appealing to you as the head man there.
Well, it does. It does. Having that background knowledge and having that prior experience in this community, in this area, knowing that this area has quality talent. It has some talent in it. Now, there are not a whole lot of Julio Jones walking anywhere, much less Foley, but that, there are some talented young men here and that are willing to work hard and that can help you to build some things. So there are there was some prior knowledge there that went into my decision. But also it had a lot to do with knowing that these young men are really hard-nosed guys and that can get it done and that will go out and play hard.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's Julio Jones is a generational talent, man. I mean, but there's schools that go through an entire football program that never produce an NFL talent. And, Foley's got just players that you go down the line that have produced collegiate talent too. And so, and I think kind of talking a little bit about that talent, I want to hear from you, just some guys that if I'm a college coach watching this podcast, who is it that they need to be looking out for on this 2021 squad that you have?
Well, I think on this 2021 squad, if you really get down into it and start looking at it, it's probably a little more heavy in your junior class and in your sophomore class. Our senior class is a good class, I think. There are quality players in there. From our standpoint right now, in our senior class, we have Tajarius Roper, who's really a kind of a jack of all in there, but also he's a hard-nosed football player. He's quality GPA and ACT, and he has really stepped up. He's we play him at safety and running back. That just shows you his versatility, but he does a lot from that standpoint. But the main one I think garnering the most attention is probably going to be in our junior class right now is Harrison Knight, who's a wide receiver. Harrison is 6'3", right now, right at 180 pounds, and he's really starting to come along. I think right now he has like 450 yards receiving with 27 receptions and 5 touchdowns right now. So he's really coming along. We're expecting to add to those totals going forward.
Man, that sounds great. I mean, I love it that coaches can tune in and they're not hearing, me or recruiting analysts. They're hearing the head coach talk about these guys. And so, I definitely, and the, coaches start recruiting earlier and earlier. And so, this is just an indication right now, hey, go down to Foley, talk to Coach Scott, check in on his junior and sophomore classes too. But you guys,
our sophomore, our junior class, we have AJ Prim, who's a defensive end, who's 6'3", 230. He's a hybrid end linebacker type, and really, I think his upside is tremendous, man. And we have an offensive tackle in that class as well, in that junior class, Cameron Schultz, who's 6'5", 260, right in there. He's really an athletic type, more of a slender basketball built type kid, but he has really good feet.
Mm-hmm.
we think he's going to be a good player as well. And then our quarterback is a junior in that class, Reese Tynes, who's 6'2", 200 pounds, and really coming along in that junior class. So those are the guys that really stand out in our junior class. And then our sophomore class is where I think we got the biggest probably upside with Logan Joellenbeck, who's our left tackle, who's a sophomore right now. He's 6'5", 6'6", 305.
Good gracious.
Yeah, he's a humongous young, and he really has the ability to be a quality player one day, and he's developing fast. He was just up at Alabama this weekend for the Ole Miss game, so there is some interest, and he's on their radar. Obviously, he's on their radar. So, Perry Thompson, wide receiver in that sophomore class, who's also 6'3", about 180 pounds, and his upside is tremendous. He's second on the team in receiving right now behind Harrison, and he has right at 400 yards receiving as well. So they're right there neck and neck. He actually Perry has 37 catches for 400 yards, and Harrison has 27 catches for 450 yards. So they're right there on the same track with each other, so those two guys are going to be back for us next year. So we feel like we have some skilled guys on the edges that college coaches need to come down here and get a good look at, and we think that they can really help a program that's trying to get to that next level.
Yeah, well, and I think they'll help your program get to that next level too. I mean, you guys play in just such a difficult region. I think sometimes that that South Alabama, Mobile, Baldwin County, all that area is just overlooked. But it's so difficult for teams to win out there. There's great players all over, and it is just tough places to play game in, week in, and week out.
There's no doubt about that, David. I know we're in a great state of Alabama where football is kind of king and everybody's pretty good and everybody's just serious about their ball. But when it comes down to this area for me, and I try to be a guy that goes around and watch ball in all different areas of the state, so you can tell with certain areas, Birmingham, they're going to throw it around. They're going to be more precision and precise, and it's going to be about the scheme, and Montgomery is going to be about the athletes on the field and where they're at and all. But I think in Auburn and in that area over there on the eastern side of the state, they're going to be big and precision, and that's kind of how Mobile is. It's kind of a matchup based area, quality players and quality scheme. So it's really, really getting to be tough to get a W on Friday night.
I have never heard this assessment of the state. That's the most interesting way, but I have to agree with you. I've never thought of it that way, but I'm somebody that's seen football in all places in the state of Alabama. That's a great way to look at it, man. I've never thought of it that way. Of course, it doesn't. Like I said, there's no weeks off for you guys. Y'all had to Davidson this week, isn't that correct?
We got Davidson this week, and we get into those last 4 or 5 games that hopefully we can go in there and play well and see where everything shake out at. We still have to play Theodore at the end in about 2 weeks, who's leading the region right now. Mm-hmm. So we still got a tough road to go.
Yeah, but that's the thing is every year. Teams from down there, and your team's no different. I watched some film on some of your guys, and every year I pop on the tape, pull it up on Huddle, and they're just some guy that stands out. I had a coach from Daphne send me a player last night. No, I've never even heard of this kid. He's a 2022 guy. I'm watching him. I'm thinking, man, he can play group of 5 right now, and he doesn't even have hardly any offers, and so. That if I'm just giving this message with Coach Scott on here agreeing with me, recruit Mobile hard because you'll find players down there.
I think that it is the most baffling thing for me, David, being a high school coach, and I played college football. I try to keep my ear to that world and to that what it takes to play at that level. And there are definitely plenty of those guys in this area that can help you win at the college level, especially at the FCS. In Mobile, FCS is abound. FBS, yeah, there are some quality FBS kids around here as well. And there are FBS kids that are labeled or recruited or whatever you want to call it. But there are a lot of quality players in this area, and I just think it's the most fertile ground because the kids are going to come to you with a base of knowledge where they can come in and play immediately.
Yeah, and and they can handle any practice condition you throw at them too, because it's hot down there.
They're generally tough. They are generally tough people. I'm real honest with them. They're generally tough, but also they're generally athletic, and they are generally have an idea of what schemes you're running.
Yeah. Well, man, Coach, we wish you nothing but success this season. Good luck going to Davidson this week. And thanks so much for coming on, talking about your program, your players, and really the Mobile area. And I hope to see more coaches get down there and recruit it.
Well, thank you, Dave, for what you do, and we appreciate you guys. Thank you much.
Well, stay tuned as we have Coach Lloyd from the Randolph School coming up. He's going to be talking about his quarterback, his running back, and some other players on his team. Well, welcome back to the AL Recruiting Podcast. If you haven't done so yet, please hit subscribe. That helps us continue to give coverage to recruits in the state of Alabama. So hit the subscribe button. But today we are joined by the head coach of the Randolph School, Coach David Lloyd. Coach, glad to have you on today. Glad to have you talk about the best start in Randolph history.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having us on so we can, talk a little bit of Raider football. But it's been exciting, man. Anytime you can have success with your guys and be successful on the field, it's always a good time. And fortunately, we've been successful here. So hopefully we can just keep it, have fun, finish the rest of the season healthy, and see where it goes.
Yeah, man. I mean, one of the things anybody that's kind of been in this state is knows that Randolph has been known for some of their other programs, known for soccer and cross country and things like that. Tennis has been a thing there, but, really just establishing kind of a tradition, what you're doing there is establishing a tradition with the football program and putting something together. And everybody says to have a tradition, you got to have wins, right? And so 6-1 really helps kind of build that tradition.
Right. And athletically, I mean, Randolph's been pretty successful over the course of the years. I mean, like you said, soccer, cross country have been really successful. Those guys are well coached. They do a great job. Basketball makes the trip to the Sweet 16 last year under Coach Morris. And really, I mean, we squeaked into the playoffs last year as the 4 seed, going 5-5. And that really made it, I think, the 5th playoff appearance in the last 6 years. They were 4 for 4, then they had a kind of a down year, then we got back at 5, so we've been successful over the last several years, but this is probably wins and losses wise, like you said, the best we've been, and we're just trying every week to prepare for our opponent who we play on Friday and try to increase that. And, hopefully we get to host a playoff spot, something we've never done at school. We've never won a playoff game. So those have been goals of ours since the start of the season.
Awesome. Well, you can't have wins and you can't have success without players. And so, we want to bring you on and give you the opportunity to highlight some players that we know we have coaches that listen to the podcast, and hey, they're not listening to me. They're getting to hear from the actual head coach of some guys that you think some colleges ought to be checking out.
We've got a few seniors. We'll start with a couple of offensive and defensive linemen. Jack Wimberly and Brendan Marsh have both done a really good job for us up front on both sides of the line. They anchor our offensive line. They both start on the defensive line. Those two guys have had great seasons for us. Both have taken a couple of unofficial visits to some smaller schools. So we're hoping to kind of get their name out there, and hopefully they continue to have a good season and kind of get their stock up a little bit. A couple of our other seniors, and he's actually a two-sport guy. He's a phenomenal baseball player, very, very good football player. He actually took last year off to focus on baseball. We got him back this year. He's been a really physical presence for us on the defensive side, played some receiver for us. And, I mean, he's a 33 on the ACT kind of guy.
Now, who is that coach? You kind of broke up there. Who was that?
Frederick Wessel.
Okay.
He's a senior baseball, football player, 33 on the ACT. He's going to make somebody a really good football player or baseball player. He would like both. High academic guy, so he likes a academic challenge. He's great in the classroom, just a really good kid, and has done a really, really good job for us. And obviously when, if you hear of Randolph, you probably hear the name Nick Strong. He's a junior for us. And he's actually got to move around this year and just kind of show some of his versatility as an athlete. He's played running back. He's played the slot. He's played outside receiver. He's played defensive back. He's returned kicks. He's an athlete. He's an all-purpose back. He can really play anywhere on the field. And he's been doing that for us throughout the summer, 7-on-7 OTAs throughout the year. He's got a couple hundred rushing yards, like 400 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. Like, he's kind of done it from everywhere for us. Interception on the defensive side of the ball. He's even taken a couple of snaps at quarterback for us and some Wildcat stuff. So we get a lot of mileage out of Nick Strong. And a few juniors that have really, really come on this year. Andrew Hunter, our quarterback, has really developed into a good quarterback for us. Really has an understanding of the offense. He's doing a great job throwing the football. He's thrown for 19 touchdowns. He's ran for another 10 touchdowns. And he's almost right now, he's probably around, he's almost at 2,000 total yards of offense, I think. He's done a really, really good job leading our program. And he's a junior. He's got another year to grow and develop. But I think he's a guy that could play at the next level. He's got the tools to do so. And then a kid named Connor Goodson. Connor Goodson is a safety for us. He also plays some receiver. Really physical player, loves coming downhill in the box, does a great job, really good kid. And that's the thing with our guys is they're also high academic kids, and that's really Randolph in general. The student athletes at Randolph are academically really, really good in the classroom. Most of our guys are going to score around that 30 mark on the ACT. So usually getting in and getting admitted to schools really, really kind of works in our favor in that area. But those guys are going to make some people some really good football players if they're just going to take a chance on them and get them in their program.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I have a lot of coaches always reach out to me, and that's good to know is they always reach out to me and are like, hey, who are some good high academic kids? We need help in the area of GPA. We need help in the area of the scores, or just having somebody that can qualify, or maybe a guy where they can stack a scholarship and say who could get a full academic scholarship. So, there's different rules at different levels, but I know that good academics never hurts. And I think it's great for coaches to want to be on your sidelines and check your kids out, man.
Right. And that's what we're hoping we can do. We've had some success the last few years getting kids into, different schools. We had a couple from last year, Noah Reed's at Olivet Nazarene. Carter Wimberly's a linebacker at Birmingham Southern. A few years ago, Luke Allison, who's a slot receiver at Washington and Lee. So we've had some success getting some players into some schools. We want to continue that. And, our long snapper last year, he's up at Duke, is the backup long snapper there. So we've had some success. We just want to kind of continue that. And I think we've got players just like everybody else. In North Alabama, there's a lot of great football players around. You don't have to go very far to find a lot of good players that could play at the next level. Mm-hmm. And we're just trying to get our guys out there and get them some notice.
Absolutely, man. Well, I just say this and encourage, hey, go watch go watch Randolph play, go watch the Raiders play, and definitely, looks like you're going to have a few more weeks to watch them play as they look headed for the playoffs. But, you guys head to North Jackson this week, heading up to Stevenson. Sometimes that's never an easy place to go play. It's a long ride out there, and they have a great football tradition there too. And so, what are going to be some of the keys to victory this week for you as you head there?
Well, like you said, traveling to Stevenson, going to North Jackson it's a tough environment to play in. It's always difficult when you take a long road trip to get your guys ready. Once you get off the bus, to play at a place like Stevenson there, they've gotten back more to their physical kind of downhill approach to football. With Coach Hollis, he's done a really, really good job with them this year. So there's a different level of physicality to those guys than there were last year. Coach Tygard, who handled the guys for the last couple of years, he's going to spread the ball out. He's going to run and gun and all this onside kick and trick plays and all this other stuff. So it's a different kind of prep. But when you get ready for these guys at North Jackson, Coach Hollis has done a really good job. These guys are going to play right at you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to back down from anybody. They're going to play physical right in your face for 4 quarters. So the challenge for us is going over there and, one, kind of playing in that environment, and then 2, making sure that we're able to stand up to their physicality. We've got to be able to match that. I think at the end of the night, whoever's going to be able to run the ball more effectively is going to have a leg up in who wins that football game. I think we both got playmakers on both sides of the football, so it's going to come down to execution, who can protect the football, and at the end of the day, who do we feel like can run the ball a little better?
Yeah, and hey, I'll say this. I think, and this is not for you to agree or disagree with, but I think a physical team at North Jackson fits that identity too. So as somebody who's lived in the state of Alabama pretty much all my life, except for a few years here and there, that fits their identity.
Oh, 100%. We played them, when I was at JP2, we played them a few years ago with Lee Witherspoon at running back.
Yeah.
And I would swear at times they had 14 men in the box. It's just how they played under Coach Rose there. And Coach Hollis is kind of bringing them back to that tradition of physical North Jackson football. He's done a really good job with them. And you can tell there's a different level of physicality to them. And it fits their tradition.
Yeah.
And like I said, Coach Hollis has done a really good job of bringing that back. So,
yeah, that's the tradition Mark Rose established there. And so for sure, I'm excited to watch this game and have an opportunity, to check out the film, see who makes the plays on it. And Coach, man, we wish you nothing but luck good luck this season. Hopefully you stay injury free and continue to stay healthy as you guys continue to make a run. But congrats so far on a great season. Keep up the good work. And thanks for what you do for the kids at Randolph.
Hey, I really appreciate it. And, thank you for what you're doing for our kids across the state. Sometimes for smaller schools, it's a little harder to get noticed with our players. And I think we've got great players, and what you guys are doing here with your podcast. And, I see you all over social media promoting guys. We really appreciate it. Anything our community can do to help our guys is greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, stay tuned for the rest of the show. We got another coach hopping on and two players who are blowing up with offers, and we're going to be interviewing them. So stay tuned. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. We are so glad today to be joined with Coach Josh Bailey. He is the recruiting coordinator and the O-line coach for Huntsville High School. Coach, so glad you could be with us to talk about some players today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and if Coach Bailey looks happier today, it's because they're on fall break and they're only having to do football right now as they kind of prepare for the Austin Black Bears this Friday night.
Yeah, that's right. Best week of the year, right? Just it's football, just football. So we love that. Just
get to focus on that. But you guys got to win over Albertville. And, kind of coming off of that. And I've said this in this particular region. I've been to multiple games watching this 7A region, kind of covered a lot of different players here. And man, you guys are no different. You have a lot of players on the field that can contribute in college. And you reached out to me and said, hey, let's get on the podcast. Let's talk about some of those players. And so, Coach, as a recruiting coordinator, we want to hear from you. Coaches hear enough of my evaluation. We want to hear, who do you think that's on your sidelines and at practice that coaches should come by, take notice of, check out on this 2021 team?
Sure. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that I appreciate everything that you do. And as a recruiting coordinator, when you get into coaching, if you get into it just because you love football or for the paycheck, especially, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. And, I like to think that most of us get in it, because we like the kids and we want to help the kids and give back to the community in some way. And, as for somebody like that who enjoys seeing kids thrive and do all and all of that, part of the cool thing about being a recruiting coordinator is a lot of these kids, they grow up watching college football, especially here in Alabama where it's kind of king, and they have that dream of playing on Saturdays. And especially in today's climate where, there's the transfer portal, and it makes it so much harder sometimes for these high school kids to get evaluated or for coaches to even take a look. Anything that can put our kids out there to help, I look fondly on. And so that's part of the reason why I do this and why I appreciate the opportunity to do this. And I appreciate you for doing what you're doing.
Well, Coach, and I'll before we even say about the players, I mean, that's why we got into it, is started it. Me and another guy, he hadn't been on the show yet, but he's actually one of the founders of AL Recruiting with myself 11 years ago, is we figured out that, man, like we said on our first show, all the 5-star guys get a ton of coverage, but what doesn't get coverage, and there's still this void. I mean, and it doesn't matter what size school, there's a void in recruiting. There's somehow, some way, there's still a lack of information that college coaches don't get the information that a school actually designates a recruiting coordinator. And I'll say this, man, Huntsville's ahead of the times. There's a lot of schools that have designated a recruiting coordinator. Y'all are ahead of the times with helping kids get their name out there. And that's only going to benefit your program in the future. That's going to benefit these kids in the future when you're talking about NIL stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I remember back when, I was playing high school ball, I played at Arab. I'm originally from Arab. And back in the day, that was before even the days of huddle. And so me trying to get recruited, and I was like all the other kids, I wanted to play college football, but I had to, make my own highlight and cut it up. And then I had to go and research all of the athletic offices' addresses and went and got the, manila envelopes with the bubble wrap on the inside, burned my own DVDs, put the postage stamps on them and sent them out. And I had to do all of that myself. And, that's a lot of work. And, these kids already got so much work. They got homework. We have, we're a pretty good school academically here at Huntsville. A lot of our kids are taking AP classes, and those are high pressure classes. And so anything that we can kind of take off their shoulders, we definitely want to do that. And there's a lot of work to, this recruiting business, and kind of like what you were saying, I think that there's a lot of misnomers about, college football at the D2 schools and even the FCS schools, where they don't get as much publicity. And so a lot of kids think, well, if I don't get the offer to go play, at, an Alabama or an Auburn or a Tennessee or a Georgia or something like that, I'm just an average football player. And that's just not the case. The football at Jacksonville State is phenomenal, and any kid will tell you when they take that visit to Jacksonville State on a Saturday, they look at those guys and they're giants. They're huge. They're fast. They can move. Those are great football players. And you can say the exact same thing for the Division II level. And you can say the exact same thing for the Division III level. They're all phenomenal. It's all phenomenal football. And so anytime a kid can get the opportunity to go play college football, they've done something special. And I think a lot of times that gets overlooked because of exactly what you're talking about. It's just the publicity's not there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's so many guys, and I'll say this, that I don't know how many we have listened to the podcast. We have a lot of players and coaches that watch this, but there's so many guys that may watch this, or they sit down and watch Monday Night Football and they're like, yeah, I could probably gain a yard in the NFL. And I'm like, you couldn't gain a yard in NAIA. I mean, like, because
Right.
those kids they're working out every day. They're strong as they can be. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, if you play college football at any level, it's a special thing to do. And it's that you're now in the minority, because the minority people get to go play college football. And we help a lot of people get that exposure. And I'll say this, the reason it's a minority is anybody that's playing football in high school, just about anybody, if you're a starter, you could play college football if you want to, bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's still going to come down to the want to. You still got to want it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's part of what I do. I think the hardest job that I have sometimes is setting reasonable expectations, and honest evaluation is a huge deal for us, not just from a recruiting standpoint, but just from a football standpoint,
Right.
Letting players know what they're capable of, where their ceiling is, and telling them the ways that they can reach that ceiling and encouraging them to do that. And so, all that plays a major role. But anyway, about the 2022 kids, the senior class, we're actually at Huntsville, we have a very, very small senior class. I think there's only 8 seniors.
Wow.
For a football team. And so we were very young. In a lot of ways, we're junior and sophomore led. But in that 22 class, we do have some talent. The first one I'd start with would be Hayden Bradford. Hayden is a nose tackle, a shade, one technique. And he got hurt in the Grissom game. He got hurt week 3 or week 2. It'd be a third game. He got a bone fracture. And so he hasn't been able to get out any film, which is really unfortunate since that game. But he's a plugger. In the weight room, the guy's just a warrior. He's a bench pressing. I think he got up 350 was his max, which is, almost unheard of at the high school level. And he's a 500-pound squatter. Incredible work ethic. He has a invited walk-on offer to go play at Troy. And I know some other places have expressed interest in him. I know he was talking to Oklahoma Baptist at one point. I think they're a Division II. I'm not quite sure, but he's definitely a player. We're looking forward to getting him back on the field. It won't be this week, but we're hoping it'll be for next week, because down the stretch we got some games that we need to win here, and so having him would be a huge deal. And then also in that 2022 class, our senior class, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Jeremiah Lovelace. He's a wide receiver for us, and he's a bit on the smaller side. I think that's why he's probably under recruited. He's only 5'8". But through 6 games so far, he's accounted for 30 receptions. He has 584 yards. Wow. And I think probably the most telling statistic here, and that's averaging 97 a game. I think probably the most telling statistic is he's averaging almost 20 yards a catch. And so he's a big play guy. For the past 2 years, he played defensive back. He played corner for us, and we needed some added explosion on offense. And so we put him in at kind of like the slot receiver role, and he has really thrived there. He's got great hands, great ball skills, and he can get the job done. And those undersized guys, a lot of times they get messed up with the measurables. College coaches will see 5'8" and they'll just say, "Oh, I'll move on." But like, a ball player is a ball player to me.
Right.
And the kid's an absolute ball player. He's a soccer player. And also, for the coaches listening, he's got a 26 ACT. And so for a lot of schools, he can get a lot of that. If you're listening, he can get a lot of that money academically. And he's a smart kid. He can handle learning an offense. And so Jeremiah Lovelace is really somebody to brag about. In the past 3 games, so we struggled a little bit on offense for our first 3, and we played some really good teams. But in the past 3 games, in the Bob Jones game, we scored 49 points and lost by 3 points. In the James Clemens game, we scored 40 points and lost by 3 points. And then last week in Albertville, we scored 56 points. And so just for a point of reference, through those past 3 games, Jeremiah against Bob Jones, he had 5 catches for 55 yards. Against James Clemens, he had which James Clemens, is ranked number 7 in 7A right now, number 1 on the top of our region. Jeremiah against James Clemens had 10 catches for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns that game. So a really explosive game there.
And let me say this too. You may not say this, but I'll say this about James Clemens. They have Division I prospects in their defensive backfield all over.
No doubt.
And so to put those numbers up against those defensive backs all over that field, that's impressive.
Yeah, especially against them. I think anytime you catch for 200 plus yards, Good grief. That's ridiculous. And then last week against Albertville, he also had 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. And even though he's 5'8", he can go up and get those contested balls. If you go look at his highlight, a lot of them's him going up and getting 50-50 balls. And so he is a really good player. And so, like I said, we only got 8 of them, I think. And, some of them play, sparingly and spot play. So we're not even really playing all 8. But we do have some top end talent in that group.
Yeah.
So if we want to move on to the 23 class,
absolutely,
that's where we have. So first, I guess we'll start it off with Stone Lawless. He's our quarterback. And the kid's a super talented kid. He hasn't taken his ACT yet. He's taking it in October, but right now he has a 4.3 GPA. And the kid, I taught him in class, he is phenomenal kid in class. And he's also a baseball player. I think, I can't remember the rankings, but he's top 10 catchers in the U.S. right now.
Wow. Great
possibility he'll get drafted. He committed to Tennessee as a freshman in high school to play baseball, play catcher. But he's also a great football player. We just put him at quarterback as a sophomore. His freshman year, he actually played tight end linebacker. He's about 6'3", about 210 pounds, and he can really sling it. Through 6 games, he has about 1,500 yards, 1,486 yards. And yards per attempt really matter to us statistically on offense. He's averaging right about 8 yards per attempt, which is quite good. And he has 16 touchdowns through 6 games, and he's also ran for 2 more, even though, I'd probably describe him as a little bit more of a pocket type guy. And again, I could go through the statistics for the past 3 weeks. But, of course, the past 3 weeks, his statistics have just been through the roof. Mm-hmm. He also has an offer from Troy to play football and baseball. And I know some other schools have been in contact with him. I think UAB has been in contact with him. I think they might be getting ready to offer here pretty soon. But he's a phenomenal football player, just all around. Also in that 23 class, there's Cam White. He plays wide receiver, and he's a phenomenal athlete. Last year, he didn't have quite the year I think they expected, but he's really kind of burst onto the scene this year. And he's actually, part of the reason our offense has been having so much success is if you look at our receiving core, our leading receiver is Jeremiah, the senior that I mentioned earlier. Right. He has 30 catches for 584 yards and 6 touchdowns. But Cam White, right behind him, has 29 catches for 544 yards and also 6 touchdowns. And so, they're both averaging over 90 yards a game. And Cam, he doesn't run into as much of the measurable issues as Jeremiah does. He's about 6'2", he weighs about 200 pounds, performs really well in the weight room. And again, he's just a junior, and he 100% can go up and get those 50-50 balls. A super talented kid. Weekend before last, he visited Georgia Southern, went down there for their game. This past weekend, he was at South Alabama for that game. And then just today, I think UAB struck up a conversation with him. And so his recruiting is really kind of taken off at this point. And so, those guys really help us on offense. Also want to mention some guys on my offensive line. At left tackle in that 2023 class is Seth Lawson. And he hasn't got as much exposure. I think some coaches that I've talked to personally say that they really like his film. And so we'll see where that goes. But Seth is about 6'3". Right now he weighs about 260 pounds. But what's really good about Seth is he's very athletic. And his pass sets are really good. He's also pretty explosive. He's one of the rare kids that you got. He's got those long arms. And so in the weight room, bench press is kind of a little bit of a labor for him, right. But he's explosive. And so one of those rare kids that power cleans more than he bench presses, which a lot of people would say, a lot of people would look at that and say, well, must be a bad bench press, but it ain't. It's a good power clean. He'll be a 300-pound power cleaner by the time he's a senior, which is really moving a lot of weight at a high level. He's really good. Also, would be remiss if I didn't mention my center. That's Alex Gray. And he's a kid who wants to go play college football, and I think he'll have the opportunity. And a lot of that's because of his grades. He's a 4.2 GPA kid, 28 ACT, and so or it might be a 29. I'd have to double check that, but it's either a 28 or a 29.
It's really
ACT.
Good either way.
Yeah, right. And he's a smart kid, but he's nasty. He plays with an attitude, and he's not a nice kid by any means. And he's our strongest pound for pound on the offensive line. He's at about 6'3", probably at about 270 right now. And he actually started at right tackle for us in the spring, and we moved him into center to kind of shore up our guard-to-guard situation. And he has come through and really been a bright spot. You can catch him on film reaching a 3 technique. I mean, he's very talented also. And so that kind of rounds out that 2023 class. Also on defense, we have some kids sort of like the guys on our offensive line. They're not getting a lot of attention, but we're very athletic on defense. Jarrell Goodlow plays linebacker for us, and he's played a little bit. He's played some Sam outside the box, and he's played inside the box too. But he's our leading tackler right now. And also, I want to mention another kid, Rodarius Hardy. He's played corner, he's played safety, he's played linebacker. He's really one of those tweener type bodies. He's at about 6'2", about 180, and he's extremely versatile. He can cover in space, but he can also make tackles in the box. Probably at the next level, he'd probably be like a nickel type body or maybe like a strong safety type body, but he's a 250 power cleaner at about 180 pounds, explosive kid. He can go up and contest 50-50 balls. He's long and rangy. And so I think that he'll probably have a bright future also. Awesome. And so that 2023 class is pretty talented. And then probably just to kind of round it out, our freshman football team's separate. And so we don't really deal as much with them. But so to round it out, our 2024 class is probably kid for kid the most talented class that I've seen since I've been coaching, and definitely since I've been at Huntsville. Starting with that class is Carlin Long. He plays running back. He actually came in from Lee, and he actually started for us as a freshman last year and had a really good season last year. And his season totals, he's had 130 carries through 6 games, which is quite a lot of carries. And you look at the kid, he's about 6'1", he's about 180 pounds. And so you kind of wonder if he can take the beating. And so far he has. We haven't really spelled him an awful lot. He's kind of been our go-to guy at the running back position. He has 130 carries for 818 yards through 6 games. That's averaging about 136 a game. And he has 4 touchdowns, and he's also caught a touchdown. And against Albertville, it's a shame to say, he went off for 5 touchdowns against Albertville, and 3 of them got called back for holding. And I won't comment on whether or not I thought they were really holding calls, but he had a really good game against Albertville, and he's an explosive kid. He's been in contact with the University of Cincinnati, and also he's been in contact. I think UAB struck up contact with him, just like they did Cam White, our wide receiver in the 23 class. I think they struck up contact with him this past year. And he actually has been in contact with Notre Dame a little bit. They've contacted him once or twice. And so he's somebody to look for. And then, once you get into the 2024s, if you're being recruited actively and you're in the class of 2024, like a kid like Carlin, you know that you're quite good. And so part really of our and part of our objective for those young kids, our sophomores, is to just kind of get the process going. And so a lot of the kids I'm about to mention, the process for them hasn't really started yet, but this is a great place to start it, and part of the reason why I like doing what I'm doing. I mentioned our wide receiver core. We have a 2024 athlete named Amari Jabbar. And so to round out that receiving core through the season, I had Jeremiah Lovelace with 30 catches, Cam White with 29. Amari also has 30 catches, and he's a sophomore. He's only got 251 yards. He's averaging about 8 yards a reception, which is a step down from Jeremiah's 19 a reception and Cam's 18 a reception. But a lot of that is because he's plays in the slot. He's a smaller kid. He's probably about 5'8", probably about 160 pounds right now. So looking for him to put on a little weight. But he catches the hitches, and he's an explosive kid. He'll also play some running back for us, and I expect him to definitely go play it at the next level, Amari Jabbar. And then on the offensive line, we have Brennan Wilcutt, and we let me just say this, instead of just going and naming them, because we got a lot of sophomores that play on the offensive line. I think the rest of our kids that play the offensive line could play at the next level. They're getting a lot of reps. We're repping young guys there, and they have really stepped up and done well thus far. And so those kids are really impressive. And so, like I said, we got a lot of talent, and so we're just trying to put them out there. And the ones that already have the process going, we're trying to keep it going. And the ones that haven't, we're trying to get it going.
Well, coaches, if you're watching this video, his Twitter, the Recruit Huntsville, is on this video. All you got to do is punch that in, and start the conversation with him. But, and let me say what you just did as an advice to anybody that's running recruiting for a high school team. You were naming schools that were interested in them. I can't stress how important that is that if a kid is receiving interest from a certain school, that you make that known when you put that kid out there. And you did a great job of that. And I just want to say, we have other high school coaches that watch this. You need to, if they're visiting somewhere, if they're receiving interest about a visit, if they are getting an offer, you need to put that information out there, because inevitably what happens is it's like that if one kid receives interest from a certain school in a conference, other schools in that conference are going to take notice. And so you can open the door to recruiting just by posting that little tidbit of information, by saying, you know, this school in the OVC is looking at this kid. Well, other OVC schools are going to take notice of that information. And that's an important part of helping kids out to be recruited.
100%. Actually, it's funny you say that. I actually had a conversation with Cam White, our junior receiver, after practice, and he took that visit to Georgia Southern, and he took the other visit to South Alabama, and he didn't take any pictures. And I said, Cam, you're crazy, because of exactly what you just said. Exposure builds exposure. And if you go to Twitter and you look at a lot of these kids that are trying to get recruited, you know, they'll put their highlights out there, and and that's necessary. You have to do that. Put your highlights out there. But a lot of these college coaches, I mean, they're being flooded every day with highlights from kids all around the country. And, you know, they don't got enough time in the day to look at everybody. And so it's a way to streamline your recruiting process, because if you're at Jacksonville State and you tweet out that you had an official visit, an invited visit to UAB, right? The coach doesn't have to evaluate your film to know that, you know, you might be able to play there, because he knows that UAB has great caliber of athletes. And so he knows immediately, I don't have to sort through all these kids. I want to look at the kids that already are getting these kinds of offers and already, you know, going on these visits, because somebody saw something in them and they're playing at the same level I'm playing at. And I really don't want to play against that kid. I'd love to have him over here. And so, you know, that's a huge part of the recruiting process.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can't stress that enough. That was something that, you know, you really did in this interview that I wanted to stress while people are listening, is that, man, that's something you got to do, is take pictures, post it, tag us, and if we don't retweet it, direct message us to retweet it, because sometimes I get flooded with tons of messages. And same thing happens to me, is I don't even have time to retweet every one of them. So you just kind of have to remind me sometimes, and I'll hit it, but that's what happens. And so, man, I thought you did a great job and just really naming players, but also giving us information as far as kind of where they play. That's an important part and an important aspect of recruiting, Coach.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, it's amazing the tool that social media is, you know, Twitter in particular, for this whole process, you know, and a lot of the old heads don't want to get involved. You know, I don't want to Twitter and that kind of thing, but the tool that it is just incredible. You know, the amount of kids that I know that have got exposure off of Twitter, and you know, anything. That's why we made the Twitter account. Anything that we can do to put these kids out there is only for their benefit. And, you know, for any athletes listening right now, if you don't have a Twitter, it's a great idea to create one and to customize it for football. And if you only use it for football, that's great. And that's a great way to get exposure. Every college coach has a Twitter. They all use it, and they all use it to recruit. And so if you put the vital information out there, that being the ACT, that being the GPA, that being the film, and any, like you said, any exposure that you get, you're a leg up, and it's a huge deal. Your class, all of that kind of thing. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, I literally just filmed a video. I haven't even edited it yet, about 7 tips to help recruits to get recruited using social media. I mean, it is that important, and Twitter is number one when it comes to that. But man, this was a great interview. We're gonna have to have you back on sometime and just talk this stuff too. Anyway, so we'll do something a little bit later. But Coach, man, good luck as you guys head to Decatur this week to play Austin. Hope you guys get a win this week. Wish you nothing but the best. And if we can ever help you, just let us know, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And I appreciate, again, what you do. It's helping everybody.
Yep. Well, guys, stay tuned. I talked to 2 recruits who are just blowing up this year. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. We are excited to be joined with Briarwood Christian quarterback Christopher Vizzina. I think, Christopher, I have you rated as the #1 quarterback in 2023 in the state of Alabama, if not the Southeast. And, man, you have had a huge, huge year already. Your team's 7-0. Tell us a little bit about, not just from the recruiting side of it, but just how you feel about your team being 7-0 and as you kind of move forward and you're having a great season.
Yes, sir. I mean, of course, being 7-0 is awesome, but just growing with the team and having the great chemistry that we have. And, we have lots of talented kids, but the biggest thing that sets us apart from, all the other schools in the area is just how close we are and how much we enjoy being around each other. So that's been the big thing this year is how much fun we're having. I mean, we're undefeated, but it feels like we're just having fun all the time. So that's the biggest thing.
Well, it's easy to win when you're having fun with your teammates and going out there and doing it. But, man, this year has kind of been interesting. Really at the beginning of the season, we knew a lot about you and people were kind of predicting some things to happen, but man, your recruitment's really taken off. And just want to ask you about that as a recruit. When was it that you knew, man, this thing is about to blow up? Was there a certain offer or certain thing that happened to you when you were like, uh-oh, this is really going?
Yes, sir. I mean, it kind of started back in the summer. I had some schools interested in me that wanted me to come to camp. And, when I went to camp, I really just had a bunch of fun and learned from all these great coaches. And I got a whole lot better this summer. I picked up some great offers. And then, during, practice before the season and the beginning of the season, I could really tell that I had gotten a lot better at multiple things in my game. So, and then it just translated to the field and we're having a great season. So, I mean, I did get my first Power 5 offer this summer from Kentucky. Yeah. And that's kind of when I knew there's probably going to be some bigger schools interested. And then the schools just kept getting bigger and bigger. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah. And I think part of that reason is because you're just putting out great film every week, putting out great numbers. Like you said, you got better over the summer and then now you're putting it on film and sending it out in huddle and guys are watching it. But kind of the news as we're recording it, the big news this week in your recruitment was that you picked up an offer from in-state Auburn. And, you're a kid in Alabama, you're growing up in Alabama, what that rivalry between Alabama and Auburn's like. And everybody's going to take interest in you when the in-state, Alabama or Auburn offers. And obviously Auburn offered this week. What did that mean to you? And what did that do for you when you got the news about that?
I mean, it means the world to me just because, all these schools around the state, or not in the state, but, the Southeast, have been recruiting me really hard since I was a freshman. And, this year is when Auburn and Alabama really came along and started showing real interest in me. And so it was huge to get one from Coach Bobo and Auburn. And, I have real interest in Auburn and everything. And I'm real blessed that I got an offer from them. So I'm really excited about them.
Yeah, I won't put you on the spot and ask what fans if your family is fans of Auburn or Alabama. I won't do that because unless you want to volunteer that information, because really, you can be a fan, but when you become a recruit, then it's a business decision. It's a family decision. It's a lifetime decision, and you've got to go what's best for you.
Yes, sir. I mean, that's been kind of the thing. Obviously, growing up in Alabama, everybody asks me Alabama, Auburn. Everybody knows that. But I've grown up an Alabama fan. I've gone to Alabama games growing up. But I kind of realized last year, about midway through the season, when I started getting recruited by some top schools, that, I got to put my fandom aside and I've got to be mature about all this and realize this is a 40-year decision when I have to make it. And I'm not set on Alabama. Having an offer from Alabama would be a blessing, but it might not be the right fit for me. Auburn might not be the right fit for me. And, who knows? I don't know. I don't have any leaders or anything like that. I'm trying to keep a tunnel vision, straight head, and, think about everybody. So In-state schools are awesome, but I have to be mature about all this and everything. So.
Right. And in-state schools get us clicks too. So we have to talk about them. But, I think just as a young man, that's a wonderful way to put it. I mean, because now you have to think about more than just where you're going to school, 40-year decision, but you even can think financially, what does this do? And what do they offer NIL wise?
Right.
And so those are all things that I think people don't necessarily like for us to talk about with students and players, but those are real things you have to think about as a young man right now.
Yes, sir. I mean, especially with the NIL stuff, I mean, that's pretty new and everything, but Alabama or football means more in Alabama. Everybody knows that. So
right.
That's NIL is real interesting and everything, but I think the place I want to go, which could be any school in the country, is somewhere where I know that this is where God wants me to be, and somewhere where I feel like, this is a family atmosphere, somewhere I can grow, become a better person, and then just enjoy being a college football player. I mean, it's been my dream since I was little to play a college sport. And now that, it looks like it's going to happen, it's been a huge blessing. And so I'm excited about all the aspects of recruiting and everything. Mm-hmm. away from our school team, that comes first, but yes, sir.
Well, man, I love your answer. I love what you said. Let the Lord continue to lead you, and He'll guide your paths. I know you were at Alabama this past weekend taking the Ole Miss game. Mm-hmm. What's next for recruiting for you? Do you have any other visits planned? Anything coming up?
Yes, sir. So me and my family had just decided Sunday night that we'll be going to Kentucky LSU game at Kentucky, because I got to make it up there to see Kentucky, and this was the best time. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like me and my family, we kind of decide like Sunday night, Monday, where we're going to go the next weekend. So there's lots of schools that I want to go see. It just kind of depends on my schedule, if we play on a Thursday or a Friday, and my parents' schedule. So I'll definitely be going on lots of visits coming up, but I just don't know exactly where.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's awesome, man. Head to Kentucky this week, and just, we'll continue to post where you're going once you tweet it out anyway. So, but you guys got Mountain Brook this week, and, I can't think, man, what a huge week for you. You've got 18 offers, you're 7-0, and now you play Mountain Brook this on Thursday night. And really, by all, everything we can tell, this is pretty much the game to decide number one in this region. It's a big game, tough defense. Kind of tell us, what are some of your keys to the game? You don't have to give away the game plan, but what are some of the keys to victory this week?
I mean, obviously, I think it's the biggest game in the state this week.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that.
So, I mean, you can just tell the whole school's excited. I for sure know that Mountain Brook's excited too. So, I don't like that it's on a Thursday, but it's still going to be a whole bunch of fun. Mm-hmm. We just got to stay calm and do what we do. I mean, we can't let this huge game take us off our path where we normally are and everything. So, and we've got to treat it like every other game. But, in the back of our minds, we know this is the big one everyone's been waiting on. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're really excited.
Well, man, we wish you nothing but the best. We wish you good luck in this game, but also just, continue to seek the Lord as you're being recruited, and just go where He leads you to. And we wish you nothing but success in the future. If there's any way we can ever help you, just let us know. We'd love to have you on the podcast anytime you want to be.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, everybody stay tuned. We got Hunter Osborne coming up, defensive end from Hewitt-Trussville, and his trajectory and Christopher are pretty much the same. They've blown up this year, and we'll be talking to him about his recruitment. So stay tuned, everyone. Well, we are so glad to be joined with 2023 defensive lineman Hunter Osborne from Hewitt-Trussville High School. And Hunter, I just got through talking with Christopher Vizzina, and he said you guys text each other because both of y'all have kind of had the same type of year and that your recruitment's really taken off. Tell us what kind of your friendship with him is like a little bit.
Oh, CV is my boy. I mean, we've known each other, I think, since middle school. We played basketball against each other for our school teams in middle school, and we just kept in contact over the years. And I know he's a great guy. I know he's a great player. I know how good he can be. He knows how good I can be. We just always push each other. We always, like, keep each other up, congratulate each other all the time.
Well, I asked him this question, and I want to ask you the question. Both of y'all have had very similar junior years where it just seems like your recruiting has really taken off. Kind of when did you know, and when was the wow moment, or when did you know, hey, this is going to be something special, that you knew maybe an offer came in, or there was a moment you're like, okay, things are about to really take off for me?
I say what happened last spring. I got offered by Texas A&M after our spring game, and that was like my really first, oh my gosh, it was my first SEC offer. Texas A&M was a great program, and the offers just kept on rolling in. And then, it came to the summer, going to camps. I got offers during the summer at these camps. And then I say when September 1st hit again, that's when I had a really major wow moment, because I think I got bombarded with 3 Power 5 offers in the same day.
Yeah.
So that was like my really initial, this is really happening.
Yeah, you had a huge day, September 1st. I remember you tweeting about it, and we just kept tweeting, retweeting what you were doing. So it was a big day for you, man. And, you guys, Hewitt-Trussville as a program has just continued to send players to college. Is there anybody that you still keep in contact with that you kind of are leaning on for advice to go through this process? Is there anybody you talk to, or coaches kind of helping you through this?
I know a coach would definitely be Austin Tucker. He's at Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
He coached at Hewitt-Trussville a few years ago when I was playing Little League, but we talk frequently, and he's one of my go-to guys, older guys, about this whole process and decision making, and he just helps me take my time. And even though he's at Florida State, he just wants what's best for me. And then definitely some older guys that played in the program with me that I still talk to are Malachi Moore, who's at Bama, Trey Washington, who's at Ole Miss, Sean Jackson, who's down at Auburn now. Those 3 guys, if I need something, I'll go to them, and they'll always hit me back with the response that, that's genuine, and that's very helpful.
That's awesome, man. And that's an important thing. And then, of course, like you said, you talked to Christopher as well, that you guys are the same age kind of going through this process. And, you've had some huge offers, kind of like you said, since spring, summer, fall. I mean, is there anybody, any leaders in the clubhouse right now, or are any offers that stand out to you, or are you just still waiting to see, hey, what else is going to happen?
I wouldn't say everyone's even, because I look at how much they try to reach out to me during this whole process. But definitely I see some schools that are, higher up than others, but it doesn't really mean anything at this point. It's really early, I would say, because schools are hitting me up every day or every week or so, and more just come in. So you got to just take it slowly with it. I don't want to rush into it, but definitely schools like Oklahoma, Oregon, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Florida, Texas A&M. I know I don't have the offer from Bama, but we talk a lot. We talk very frequently. Who else? Michigan, I know. Florida State, I haven't got the offer from either, but I talk to them almost every week. USC, just some of those are some of the schools, but I didn't know I talk to them more frequently than others, and Nebraska as well.
That's awesome, man. And, I know you just, right before this interview, you posted you're headed to Auburn this weekend to watch them play Georgia. So you have any other visits lined up, or is that the only one you kind of got lined up right now?
So I'm going there Saturday. I don't know where I'll be next week, but I know I plan to be at Michigan versus Ohio State.
Okay, that's
Michigan,
a big one.
November 27th. That's a huge one, yeah. And then I'm trying to set up a game, visit to Penn State. Oh, I forgot to mention Penn State's another school that I talk to a lot frequently. They're up there. Penn State. And then I'm trying to get down to the Swamp in Florida, and definitely Oklahoma. Those are some other schools that I don't have a set date yet, but I'm working on it, to be arranged. Okay.
Well, that's a pretty impressive list that you're putting together there. So, and you should get to watch some really, really good games, man. So that would be good. So, but just tell us a little bit about, when you kind of think about your high school season finishing out this year, You know, you guys still have everything in front of you. You know, what does that look like playing with your teammates and then kind of seeing that translate into on the collegiate field into offers for you? What's this year been like for you?
Oh, it's been a one heck of a year. It's definitely been my favorite year so far of high school. I mean, being on varsity these past 3 years, I've just learned so much. But this year, just playing with my guys, I think we really understand each other, and this is like the strongest we've been as a team, I would say. So we're all playing for each other, and we may have some losses on the table, but that doesn't define us as a team. We know how far we can go. And so with me getting these collegiate offers as the year goes on, they're just all happy for me. It shows me how it's like a true team is, and that we just, that's what I'm looking for, that when I pick a school, great chemistry with a team. But we definitely know how far we can go. So we're just trying to work every day.
Right. And let me just say, full disclosure, and he's talking about them being close as a team to everybody listening or watching this. Literally, when he hopped on the interview, I told him about a player from Hewitt-Trussville that just got an offer like 2 minutes before he got on here, and he was excited for them. I mean, that's just kind of Matt Miller, right? What positions he play? Like tight end, wide receiver?
Tight end.
Okay. Yeah, and so he got an offer from UTM right before Hunter got on here, and he was excited for him. And so I just love that. I love that about you guys as players. And so, man, I just want to say this. We wish you nothing but the best. We hope that you continue to get all the offers that you want, and you get to, follow the Lord and make a decision that's best for you and your family.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking the time to be on here. I know there's a lot of people around the country interested in your recruitment and what you're thinking about and what you're deciding, because they're going to get a really, really good player. I've watched you play a couple times this year on TV and had that opportunity. And so, man, impressive what you're doing. Impressive what you and Justice are doing on the D-line. That's been a really fun thing to watch.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining with us today on episode 6 of the AL Recruiting Podcast. Don't forget, like the video, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast if you're listening on a podcast. Every subscription helps. Every like helps. Thank you so much for listening. Have a safe trip and watching your favorite team play this week, and God bless.